New York City is loud. It shakes. It steams in summer and freezes in winter. Trucks hammer the streets, subways rattle the ground, and every utility tunnel lives a hard life. And under all of that, there's glass. Not the clean, coiled lab spool kind. Real, deployed fiber. The same underground strands that carry your texts, your bank transfers, your Netflix. This week, that fiber carried something it was never designed to carry. Entanglement. Not a metaphor, not a press release vibe. Actual quantum correlations, fragile enough that a fingerprint of temperature change can smear them, surviving a trip across a living city. So, the obvious question is the only question: how? Because if you've ever heard of entanglement, you've also heard that it's delicate. You breathe on it wrong and it disappears. Yet here it was, threading under Manhattan and Brooklyn and still arriving quantum. And before we go any further, let's kill the sci-fi rumor at the door. This is not faster-than-light messaging. Nothing jumps ahead of causality. Entanglement doesn't let you send secret Morse code instantly across the planet. What it does is stranger and, in the real world, more useful. It lets two places share correlations so strong that an eavesdropper can't hide. That's the punchline worth caring about. Because if you can distribute entanglement on real city fiber, you can start doing two things that matter immediately: generate encryption keys with physics-level tamper evidence, and lay the groundwork for linking quantum devices across a metro the way we link data centers today. Think bank-to-bank links, grid control networks, hospital systems, critical infrastructure where we think it's secure isn't good enough, and where a future quantum computer cracking old cryptography is not a thought experiment anymore. So what happened concretely? A source created pairs of entangled photons, single particles of light that share one joint quantum state. One photon stayed with Alice. Its partner was sent about 6 kilometers through deployed New York fiber to Bob. Not a controlled optical table, real telecom plant. Then the hard part began, keeping the quantum state from being slowly ruined by everything a city does to glass. Because fiber doesn't just carry light, it also twists it. Inside a fiber, photons have polarization, the direction their electric field points. In an ideal world, polarization stays stable. In a real city, the fiber expands and contracts with temperature. It flexes. It picks up stress from vibration and shifting mounts in construction. All of that makes the fiber behave like a constantly changing optical element, quietly rotating polarization over minutes and hours. If Alice and Bob don't track that rotation, the link fades. The entanglement doesn't break with a bang, it dies with a shrug. Your statistics get boring, your link becomes classical noise. So the achievement here isn't just photons made it across the river, it's that the system actively kept the link aligned long enough to do work. Reportedly, the correlations were strong enough to generate secret keys on the order of megabits per second, and the link stayed stable for hours. 6 kilometers, deployed fiber, hours of stability, in a city. That's the kind of detail that turns quantum internet from marketing to engineering. Now, here's the mental model that makes quantum networking click. The normal internet sends payloads, packets, bits. A message is the thing that travels. Quantum networking flips that. The payload is not a file or a signal. The payload is a shared resource, entanglement distributed between two places. Once you have that resource, you can consume it to do specific tasks that classical networks can't do the same way. You can generate encryption keys where eavesdropping leaves fingerprints. You can teleport a quantum state from one processor to another, not an object, just the state, using a protocol that consumes entanglement plus ordinary classical communication. You can synchronize certain quantum sensors beyond what classical correlations allow. It's less send a qubit like an email and more set up a quantum shared link than spend it. So why is that hard? Because classical networking has a cheat code, amplification. If a signal fades after 20 kilometers, you boost it, you regenerate, you copy. Quantum networking doesn't get that cheat code. A core rule of quantum mechanics, the no cloning theorem, says you can't make a perfect copy of an unknown quantum state. If you try to amplify a qubit the way you amplify a classical signal, you destroy the thing you're trying to preserve. Which means every lost photon is not just weaker signal, it's a lost attempt at entanglement. So quantum networks fight loss the only way they can, brute force, and discipline. They generate huge numbers of entangled pairs, millions per second, because most of them won't make it. The game is not never lose photons, the game is lose most photons and still end up with enough successful pairs to matter. Loss is the first villain, polarization drift is the second. And drift is the sneaky one because it feels almost insulting. Nothing is broken, the fiber is fine, the photons are still arriving, but the measurement basis is now slightly wrong and the link quietly degrades. So, what do? You steer. The stabilization here is mundane and brilliant in the way real infrastructure always is. A low-power reference signal can ride alongside the quantum photons, a kind of calibration beacon. The receivers use it to estimate how the fiber is twisting and stretching. Then electronics drive polarization controllers, devices that can squeeze and rotate the light inside the fiber to counteract that drift in near real time. And here's the part that feels like a plot twist the first time you hear it. The classical internet babysits the quantum one. The control loop, the keep it aligned messages, travels over ordinary networking links. The quantum channel is the fragile instrument. The classical channel is the reliable nervous system that keeps the instrument tuned. Meanwhile, the system keeps score. One way to think about is this still quantum is a number like fidelity, how close your shared state is to an ideal entangled pair. High fidelity means your correlations are still strong and clean. Lower fidelity means the environment is winning. Reportedly, this run stayed around the low 90s%, high enough to pass tests that demonstrate the link is genuinely quantum and high enough to do useful key generation after error correction. Now pause and appreciate how weird that is. You're not seeing fireworks, you're seeing two detectors miles apart clicking. That's it. But those clicks line up in a way classical physics can't reproduce without cheating. The proof isn't visual, it's statistical, quiet, cold, and absolutely real. So, what does this enable first? The most immediate product of an entangled link is keys, secret bits. Those bits can feed into the same security plumbing enterprises already run: key managers, hardware security modules, virtual private networks, transport layer security. The apps don't need to understand quantum mechanics, they just need fresh keys. The difference is how those keys are produced and verified.
In quantum key distribution, attempts to eavesdrop disturb the quantum states and show up as error patterns. That doesn't mean impossible to attack. It means hard to attack without leaving a trail. In a world where long-lived secrets are liabilities, constantly refreshed keys with physics-based detection is a real operational benefit. And operational is the key word, because the future of this isn't a scientist adjusting mirrors, it's a network operations center. If link quality dips below some threshold, your first suspect isn't the universe changed. It's polarization drift, temperature swings, a controller slipping out of calibration, construction stressing a conduit, unexpected noise on a wavelength. You alarm it, you log it, you fix it. This is how new infrastructure becomes boring, in the best way. It also fits into existing fiber reality better than people assume. Quantum channels can run on a dedicated wavelength alongside conventional traffic using dense wavelength division multiplexing, the same technique carriers use to stack many colors of light into one strand. Sometimes you use dark fiber, an unused strand dedicated to the quantum link, for lower noise and cleaner operation. Either way, the boxes sit in racks, draw power, and talk IP like everything else. There are also different choices for how you encode the qubit. Polarization is intuitive, you can picture it, but time-bin encoding, early versus late arrival times, can be more stable in fiber because time doesn't drift the way polarization does. In a city route with lots of mechanical stress, time bins can trade polarization headaches for tight timing, which modern detectors can handle. The point isn't one true method. The point is real routes force engineering choices. Now, the limits. Metro scale is achievable. Long haul is the cliff. After 50 to 100 kilometers, the probability that both photons survive drops towards zero. You can't fix that with classical amplifiers because you can't clone. You can't turn up the volume on a quantum state without ruining it. So the roadmap beyond cities has one big missing piece, the quantum repeater. A quantum repeater doesn't try to push one entangled pair all the way from A to Z. Instead, it builds many shorter entangled links, A to B, B to C, C to D, and then stitches them together using a protocol called entanglement swapping. You swap entanglement between segments without directly measuring the qubits in a way that destroys the resource. But repeaters need something we don't yet have in carrier-grade form: quantum memories. You need a place to hold a qubit long enough to coordinate the swap across segments. Today, many quantum memories are experimental, often cryogenic, often delicate, not something you roll into a street-level telecom hut and expect to run through heat waves. That's the honest state of play. Metro links can be stabilized now. Repeaters are the bridge to continental scale. Quantum memories are still the hardware bottleneck. And now, one more misconception, because it always comes back. None of this breaks the speed of light. Entanglement gives you correlations, not controllable instantaneous messaging. To turn the correlations into useful outcomes, Alice and Bob still have to compare results using an ordinary classical channel. No information outruns causality. If anything, the need for that classical comparison is what makes certain security guarantees possible. An eavesdropper can't silently copy the quantum states and leave everything looking normal. So, what does this story signal for the next few years? Here's the realistic first wave: metro-scale entangled links between critical sites, data centers, hospitals, finance hubs, grid substations. Those links generate keys continuously, and those keys feed existing encryption systems without rewriting the internet. Carriers could sell quantum-secured wavelengths as premium tiers. Enterprises could run hybrid security, post-quantum cryptography and software, plus quantum keys as a second root of trust. Defense in depth, not either-or. Routes will vary. Some will use dark fiber. Some will ride a wavelength with aggressive filtering. Sources will be sized so that even if 1% of pairs survive end-to-end, you still have enough usable pairs per second to keep the key manager happy. And quietly, operational teams will learn new instincts. A few degrees of temperature swing matters. A construction crew near a conduit matters. A tiny polarization controller drift matters. The same way optical teams already think about splice loss, connector cleanliness, and DWIDM noise budgets, just with quantum states added to the checklist. That's why this New York demonstration matters. Not because it proves a finished quantum internet exists, because it proves something more valuable. The weirdness of quantum mechanics can survive contact with infrastructure. A single photon carries almost no energy, absurdly little, yet it can carry a correlation that outlives miles of city fiber, traffic vibration, weather, and all the mundane violence of real deployment. That's not a magic trick. That's engineering forcing the universe to behave consistently enough that we can build on it. Quantum networking won't replace the internet. Your video calls and databases and memes will remain classical. Quantum networking is a layer for the tasks where quantum effects buy you something classical methods can't deliver in the same way: tamper-evident key generation, physics-rooted device trust, and later, the ability to link quantum processors without physically moving qubits around. And the conversation is already shifting. The lab question is, can it work at all? The infrastructure question is, can it work on Tuesday at 3 a.m. after a firmware update? This week's story is a step towards that second question. The takeaway is simple to say and hard to execute. Generate lots of entangled photons, send them through deployed fiber, actively counter loss and drift, verify the entanglement constantly, and turn the successful pairs into keys that slot into systems people already use. Expect metro scale first. To go beyond, we need quantum repeaters and robust quantum memories, the biggest unsolved piece in the long-distance roadmap. No faster-than-light shortcuts, no teleporting trucks, just careful control that makes the strangest rules of nature do practical work in the noisiest place we can imagine: a real city. If this helped make quantum networking feel concrete, a like or subscribe keeps more of these deep dive explainers coming.